The world was still healing from the First World War generation, scarred by trenches. Haunted by loss, yet clinging to a fragile hope for peace. But peace was an illusion. In the shadows of political turmoil and economic despair, the winds of war began to stir again. And this time, the storm would be so vast, it would consume the entire world. In Germany, a man named Adolf Hitler, fueled by a nation's sense of humiliation after World War I, rose to power. He promised revenge, a restored glory, and his army, the Wehrmacht, marched under the ominous black swastika. Across the Alps, Italy's Benito Mussolini dreamed of resurrecting the Roman Empire, his black shirts spreading fear and order. Far in the east, the Empire of Japan, under Emperor Hirohito, cast its gaze across Asia and the Pacific, hungry for dominion. These three nations, Germany, Italy, and Japan, would form the Axis powers. United by ambition and aggression, they believed they could reshape the world in their image. On September 1st, 1939, that ambition turned into action. Germany invaded Poland. The world watched in horror as tanks tore through quiet fields and dive bombers rained destruction upon cities. This was not a border skirmish, it was a conquest. Within days, Britain and France, honoring their pledge to Poland, declared war on Germany. The Second World War had begun. Poland fought with incredible bravery, but it was caught in a vice. Within weeks, it fell to the combined assault of Germany from the west and the Soviet Union from the east, who at that moment were bound by a dark, secret pact to carve up Europe between them. By 1940, the German war machine seemed unstoppable, a relentless tide sweeping across Europe. Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, and Belgium all fell. Then, in a stunning blow, France, a great power, was conquered. The swastika flew over Paris. It looked as though all of Europe would fall under Hitler's dominion. But across the English Channel, one nation stood defiant, refusing to surrender: Britain. London burned night after night during the Blitz as German bombers tried to break the people's spirit. Sirens became the city's grim lullaby. Yet, through the smoke and rubble, Prime Minister Winston Churchill's voice boomed across the radio waves, promising the world, "We shall never surrender." In the skies above, the pilots of the Royal Air Force, though outnumbered, fought with unmatched courage. And for the first time in the war, Hitler's advance was halted. The world called it the Battle of Britain. Meanwhile, the war spread to new fronts. In North Africa, Mussolini's Italy joined the fight, invading Egypt in an attempt to seize the Suez Canal. But the British Army, bolstered by forces from across its empire, India, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, drove them back. The vast, unforgiving deserts of Libya and Egypt became a brutal new battleground. To rescue his failing ally, Hitler sent his most brilliant general, Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. His elite Africa Corps drove deep into the sand, pushing the Allies to the brink. But then, a quiet, determined British commander named Bernard Montgomery launched a counterattack at a small railway stop called El Alamein. It was a crushing victory for the Allies, a major turning point. Hope began to flicker once more. In June of 1941, Hitler made his most fateful decision. In an act of stunning betrayal, he broke his pact with the Soviet Union and launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in human history. 3 million German soldiers stormed into Russia, confident of a swift victory. From Leningrad in the north to the gates of Moscow, cities burned, and the land was soaked in blood. But the Russians, facing annihilation, fought back with a fury born of desperation. In the icy ruined streets of Stalingrad, they made their stand. For months, they fought for every house, every room, every pile of rubble. In the winter of 1943, the Red Army encircled the German Sixth Army and utterly destroyed it. It was Germany's first great land defeat, a catastrophe from which the Third Reich would never fully recover. On December 7, 1941, a date which, as President Roosevelt said, would live in infamy, the war exploded into a truly global conflict. The Empire of Japan launched a surprise attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Battleships burned and sank in the tranquil harbor. Thousands of lives were lost in a matter of hours. The sleeping giant was awoken, United States declared war and joined the Allies. Now, the world was truly divided. American industry roared to life, a colossal engine of war, producing ships, planes, and tanks at a speed the world had never seen. Across the vast Pacific Ocean, epic battles raged at Midway, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima as the U.S. Navy and Marines began the long, bloody island-hopping campaign to push back Japan's empire. But long before Pearl Harbor, another nation had been fighting for its very survival. Since 1937, China had been resisting a full-scale Japanese invasion. Its people endured unimaginable suffering, with horrific atrocities committed in cities like Nanking and Shanghai. Yet, under the leadership of Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, China refused to break. Bleeding but unbowed, China held down millions of Japanese troops, becoming one of the essential Allied powers in the East, fighting a lonely war for years before the rest of the world joined in. As the war engulfed the globe, nations from every continent joined the fight for freedom. Canada sent over 1 million troops who fought valiantly in Europe, playing a crucial role on the beaches of Normandy. Australia and New Zealand defended their homes in the Pacific and fought fiercely against the Japanese. India, then still under British rule, contributed one of the largest volunteer armies in history, with millions of soldiers fighting in North Africa, Italy, and the brutal jungles of Burma. South Africa also stood against fascism, contributing troops and resources. Across occupied Europe, the spirit of resistance burned bright. Brave partisans in Greece and Yugoslavia tied down German divisions in fierce guerrilla warfare. Norwegian commandos sabotaged Hitler's secret plans to build an atomic bomb. In the Netherlands, Belgium, and Czechoslovakia, ordinary people risked their lives in underground networks, never giving up the hope of liberation. Even Brazil, on the other side of the Atlantic, sent an expeditionary force to fight alongside the Allies in Italy. The beginning of the end came on June 6, 1944. The Allies launched the largest amphibious invasion in history. In the pre-dawn darkness, thousands of American, British, Canadian, and Free French soldiers stormed the heavily fortified beaches of Normandy. Under a storm of machine gun fire and artillery, they clawed their way ashore, fighting for every inch of French soil. This was the foothold they needed. With the beachhead secured, the liberation of Europe began. Germany was now being crushed from all sides. The Allies pushed from the west, while the colossal Soviet army advanced relentlessly from the east. In April of 1945, the Red Army fought its way into the ruins of Berlin. Hitler, cornered in his bunker, took his own life. A few days later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. The war was not yet finished. In the Pacific, Japan fought on with a terrifying fanaticism, refusing to surrender. The U.S. faced the prospect of a full-scale invasion of Japan, an operation that military planners predicted would cost over 1 million Allied lives and many millions of Japanese. The bloody battles on islands like Okinawa, where over 100,000 lives were lost, gave a horrific preview of what was to come. Then, in August 1945, America made a decision that would change the world forever. It unleashed a terrifying new weapon, the atomic bomb. First on Hiroshima, then on Nagasaki. In a blinding flash, 2 entire cities were wiped from the face of the earth. Faced with this unimaginable power and the Soviet Union's declaration of war, Japan finally surrendered. After 6 long years, the war was over. World War II was the deadliest conflict in human history. Over 70 million people perished, soldiers and civilians, men, women, and children. Cities lay in ruins, entire nations were shattered, and the world was forever changed. But from the ashes of this unprecedented destruction, the spirit of humanity endured, determined to build a better world. The United Nations was founded, a global body created with the singular mission to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. Europe, with help from the Marshall Plan, began the long process of rebuilding. And 2 new superpowers emerged from the conflict, the United States and the Soviet Union, setting the stage for a new kind of struggle, the Cold War. Every nation played its part, from the frozen steppes of Russia to the sweltering jungles of Asia, from the skies over Britain to the black sand beaches of the Pacific. This war was not just fought by great armies and famous generals, but by ordinary people, men and women, soldiers and factory workers from every corner of the globe, who rose to an extraordinary challenge. And today, their sacrifice remains a powerful reminder of a profound truth. Freedom is not free, and the peace we cherish must always be protected. If you were moved by this journey through World War II, please like, share, and subscribe for more epic historical stories. Let us know in the comments which moment of the war you find most impactful. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never forget the past.